She's like, when it's less impactful if I turn into
Yeah.
a person pancake. So yeah. All right, that's fair. That's fair. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for playing along. I don't see Brad, so I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. So I'm mindful of our time together today. Did everyone get the PDF that's associated with today's? Yes. Excellent. Very good. You can follow along, not follow along, use it for kindling. I don't care. It's a tool. You can keep it, not keep it. It's totally up to you. But
Actually, I wanted to mention, Alex, so I for like a totally different thing, I printed out your sheet because I just really like the notes thing.
oh
And I've been like printing that out and just using it for notes.
yeah. Okay, so put this one in your back pocket. It's Canva. That's Canva. I don't know if you use Canva, but I'm glad that you use it. That makes me profoundly happy when somebody uses a tool that I put out, even if it's a note page. Winning. All right. Well, I'm super, super excited to get started today with Practice Like the Pros. So we have been in this series just talking about all the things public speaking, which if you remember how I view public speaking is any speaking that you have to do in front of another person out loud. It's kind of crazy and hard and all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of stuff, and we all walk in with different goals and different skill sets. So I'm going to give you a basic overview of how professionals, how elite people practice so you can implement some of these things for yourself. All of these things for yourself, actually, would be great. So I'm going to share my screen. Hold tight for just a moment so I can walk you through this. That's me. Practice like the pros. All right. So when it comes to speaking, can I take a moment with all of you and hear what it is when you think of public speaking that you actually want to be able to do? So if I had a magic wand and at the end of this series or even at the end of this day, wouldn't that be amazing if I had like the easy button for the end of this day? If I could hit that and give you whatever it is that you wanted when it came to speaking, what would that be? Doug, can I start with you?
Yes. Sorry, I was just on a Teams calls, therefore the mute button is somewhere else and I had to find it again.
We're all trying
Um,
to navigate this weird world of too many buttons. Too many buttons.
I want the audience sitting on the edge of their seat wanting more. I want them to be so engaged with what I'm talking about that it was just like, wow, that's kind of my goal. It really
All
is.
right. Audience on the
Edge of their seat.
edge of their seat wanting more. Who's next?
I can go next.
Go
I
for it.
think. I think the idea of eliciting emotion, right? So, as some of the great speakers I've seen, they can take their audience from laughter to tears and back to laughter in the same speech. That's a pretty incredible ability. And at the end, the people have this call to action to go do something with that they just heard.
Mm. To action. Yes, I hear all of that. So taking people on the journey is another way I've heard people say that, taking them up and down and through all of the emotions of whatever talk it is that you're going through. I love it, David. That's really good. Melissa, how about you?
I don't know how this is going to sound when I say it out loud, but I want people to kind of like understand or buy into what I'm saying, not because of like what the context is, but because of how I'm saying it, if that makes sense.
Yes. So that to me sounds like persuasion. Nope.
Um,
No.
I guess I guess the feedback that I struggle with that I'm trying to overcome is that it like I want the thing that I'm saying to sound credible coming out of me. Do you know what I mean? So it's more like my persona, and like it's not just the words or the content, if that makes sense.
Yes. So let me see if this fits a little better. It's being clear and concise and having command over what you're presenting so that people understand it and then can take action. Is that
I think that's definitely close enough. Yes.
enough? Okay. Okay. And maybe there might be a tinge of this of I want to be comfortable in my own skin when I speak.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I hear you. I feel you. I see you on that one. Peggy, how about you?
I want them to enjoy their time there and feel like they learned something.
Mm,
And just to tack on one more thing that you can magic wand me with, I want to do that without memorizing, to do like really feel confident in the subject matter where I'm not really worried about like phrasing it right to get to the next slide and all that.
got you. So I call that not putting on a performance, but being so comfortable with what you're saying and what you're doing that you're able to roll with the punches of whatever is coming at you in the middle of a presentation.
Yep.
If I only had the magic wand. Y'all have your own magic wands. So hopefully today I'm going to teach you how to use them. So I hear you on all of these things 100%. I get it. I have been there. So again, y'all are coming at me at different levels. So for those of you who have been on the journey with me for longer, you are probably already know this. For those of you who haven't been on the journey with me as long, you may not know this. So I have been in the position of needing to do all of these things. So everything from showing up as credible as a person who has to talk about this because it's what drives my business. I have definitely wanted to take people to the edge of their seat and take them on an emotional journey, i.e. I went for the challenge of giving a TEDx talk and doing the work with there. I wanted to be able to do all of that without memorizing. And we can talk about memorizing and the need for and or the not need for memorizing, because sometimes it has a place and sometimes it doesn't. And just being comfortable in my own skin. So those of you who know me really well know that I speak very openly about the struggles that I've had being comfortable in my own skin and being the person who didn't feel like her voice was heard at the table, and or that I couldn't possibly be a leader in an organization because I was a minivan driving mom, and minivan driving moms aren't CEOs. That's not the way the world works. And so such a part of my mission is really helping people understand that that's not true. And also helping people understand that whatever they have seen me do in terms of public speaking, in terms of the knowledge that I have and the skills that I have has come through a tremendous amount of practice and putting myself in the situation over and over and over again, because my default setting is not one that feels very comfortable speaking out loud. I'd prefer to hide in the corner. So I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. And so that's why it's really important for me today to hand you tools and not just hand you the typical public speaking workshop that you've probably all seen before, which says you gotta smile more and have more energy and do this and be big and tell a great story and do all of that stuff. And I'm gonna hand you some pre-prescribed things that worked for me, but absolutely maybe are not at all what you need, because you are an individual and you have very tailored, specific speaking needs. Does this resonate with you? Do you know what I'm talking about when it comes to public speaking? Does anyone else get massively annoyed with public speakers and motivational speakers because you're like, dang it, what you told me was if I did these X 4 things that I would somehow be a miraculously fabulous speaker. I tried those 4 things. It felt weird and awkward. It didn't work. And now I'm stuck here still being the same awkward version of myself. Am I the only person in the room that has felt that? It super sucks. It's not helpful. And I'm really here to help. So what I'm going to hand you today are some tools. First, I'm going to hand you the science behind what makes an expert an expert. And then I'm going to challenge you to figure out for yourselves the pieces that you need to work on in order to do that. There is a very specific way that they practice. There is very specific steps in that practice that I want you to follow. And you have to determine that for yourself so you can take yourself to the next level of wherever you want to go. Whether or not that's a TED Talk or whether for Melissa, it's just getting up in front of, I'm going to guess, colleagues in her executive leadership team and feeling confident in her skin as she looks, as she appears, and not trying to be something that she's not. I am the queen. And I admit it fully. Poor Doug Tedder has seen like pictures of me, like trying to be a speaker that I am not. It's awkward. If y'all want a 20-minute video of it, I'll send it to you. It's bad. It's really bad. So let's talk about the science of experts. And in order to know how experts practice, we got to go to people who study experts, because I don't actually study experts, but I find people who study experts. Does anyone recognize the 2 people on the screen? Peggy, who's on the left?
Was that Angela Duckworth?
That's Angela Duckworth. Y'all familiar with Angela Duckworth?
Oh, yeah.
Yes? Yeah. No. Doug. Homework. Doug and I have worked together before. So if you see me picking on Doug, it's only because we know each other really well. Not because I actually pick on people I don't know. And not pick, it's done with a grit. Put that in your cart, preferably your local bookstore, broker's cart, not Amazon. I'm on a little bit side note of just like raging against the machine against Amazon, because I'm like, dang, as an author, do y'all know what I make on a book from Amazon? Seriously, go lower, Doug.
Wow. I know it's not much because I've written anyway, I know it's
Right.
not much.
90
50 cents a book or something.
96 cents.
96 cents.
96 cents. Don't be jealous of the money I'm raising.
That's double of what I was thinking.
I know,
Wow.
I can almost buy you a Coke. Anyway, that's a total tangent. Angela Duckworth, author of Grit, professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. She's known as being a pop culture psychologist. Wrote the book Grit, which focuses on deliberate practice. She did the research for this book with Anders Ericsson. Anders Ericsson was a Swedish psychologist known for studying elite level performers. So he is the expert in experts. So he has studied people who have taken themselves from very, very basic levels all the way up to extreme mastery. So Olympic athletes, top musicians, top performers. This is the guy that knows about those guys. So in combo, they talk about this piece called deliberate practice. And I love this for all of my speakers, because this is the piece that we really need to work on and wrap our brains around when it comes to everything that you told me that you want in terms of being a speaker. If you noticed, each one of you said something a little bit different. That would be to be expected. If you all came in here expecting the same things as a speaker and came in at the same level, I could very easily hand you, here are the 7 things to do to be a phenomenal speaker and land your TEDx talk, and you're going to be amazeballs. That's not the way it works. So deliberate practice is what we're going to focus on today. We're going to walk through the steps, and I am going to tell you how you are going to, or I'm going to help guide you toward picking out the pieces of this that you need to do yourself. Does that sound good? Do you all have questions on that? That makes sense.
Does.
So deliberate practice is intense practice done for a specific period of time that's focused on one particular aspect that you need to improve. I'm giving you just a moment to write because sometimes I get really excited and I go too fast. Deliberate practice is comprised of 3 different things: a stretch goal, undivided attention and great effort, and immediate feedback. Let's talk about stretch goals and what they mean by stretch goals. I don't mean stretch till you break goal. Like, let's go from doing presentations and your, at your job all the way to now you're on a stage, with 40,000 people around you. That might be too big of a step. But a stretch goal is a goal specifically that you pick because you don't think that you can achieve it. Some examples of that might be a marathon. It might be writing a book. It might be doing a TEDx talk. But it's a goal that you look at and you think there is no way. It's generally focused, not generally, it's focused on your weakness, not on your strength. So I know, Peggy, I'm going to rub up against the strength finders, but when it comes to deliberate practice, this is intensely focused on not where your strengths lie. There's a big divide in the world, isn't there, around, do you focus on your strengths? Do you focus on your weaknesses? I say, why can't you focus on both? I think the difference between like knowing your strengths and then picking a stretch goal is that the thing with stretch goals is that they are designed specifically, like the effort that's required, the amount of energy that's required. So when Angela Duckworth and Anders Ericsson looked at this, they really said at maximum capacity. So for the elite level folks can only do this 3 to 5 hours a day. So for the rest of us, I'm like 15 minutes a day, maybe 5 minutes a day. I don't know. What's your tolerance level? Most people think that they're setting stretch goals, but they're not setting stretch goals. They're setting goals, but not something that pushes them far outside of their comfort zone and then doing the hard work to go and get it. Do any of you have a particular stretch goal that you're working on? Peggy says no. Melissa's like, not a chance, not going to stretch that far. That looks really uncomfortable. David, how about you?
No.
No stretch goal. You signed up for the TEDx piece, so that makes me curious about you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that might be a stretch.
could be.
Doug?
I've been kicking this idea around. So remember last time we worked together, you were like, hey, Doug, you ought to write a book. I'm thinking about it.
I don't know the percentage of people that they say die with a book lost inside them, but it's huge.
I'm not planning to die anytime soon, Alex.
Well, I know,
give
but
me a day or two here, okay?
I know, but I got to kick you into some sense of urgency. There's a balance, Doug.
I hear you. You my girl. I get you.
I will say though, Alex, like we would say with strengths that you use your strengths to conquer the weakness.
Mm,
So
okay.
like, for me, maybe I would use, I don't know, communication to conquer whatever the thing is that I'm really struggling with. So,
Yeah.
you'd
Well,
pick the strength that's going to help you conquer it.
so, it's interesting that you say your strength is communication. Is that one of your strengths?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you identified the thing that you most wanted to improve, it's being confident in your subject matter.
Well, a lot of times, like, there's sort of a shadow side to your strength. So, like, mine could be, talking too much, my family might say. So you work on the listening.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I would question it because I don't speak strengths. I just know of them, right? I say I speak street strengths. I'm like, oh yeah, I got positivity as a strength. What
Yeah.
right? Like, so just street strengths. But when I think about communication, especially and being confident in subject matter, what I find is most people are subject matter experts in their content. Where they struggle is with the confidence, and the confidence doesn't come unless you do the deliberate practice. So when you look at the research behind the fear of public speaking, you guys maybe you remember I showed you the book from Michael Motley, who has broken down the difference between performance-based public speaking and conversational speaking and how it creates so much anxiety. But looking at that piece, that the more time that you spend in between events actually increases your anxiety. So if you are only speaking once every 3 months and you're already a little bit of an anxious speaker, that anxiety is only going to build and you're less likely to do it because it's not a repetitive task. So a stretch goal might be, I'm going to speak 2 or 3 times a week because I need to. Because if I don't, the anxiety is going to build and I'm not going to get comfortable and I'm not going to build my confidence level. Where's that sit with y'all? Is that clear as mud?
I think that's absolutely true.
It's I use a lot of running analogies because I'm a runner. So lots of people say they want to run a marathon, but then shy away from actually going out and putting the miles in. This is the equivalent of putting the miles in. If you've ever tried to run a race without actually putting the miles in, which you end up doing is not running, you end up walking, and maybe you don't even end up finishing. And Melissa is laughing because she has done this.
I've totally done this. Yeah. I did finish though, and I didn't walk that much. So
Me too. Been there, done that. So everything, again, all of this to say, I have this experience. I've lived this in 1,000 different ways, right? So walked my first half marathon completely untrained, completely like 60 pounds heavier and a smoker, right? It's taken a long time, a lot of deliberate practice to finish 5 marathons. I finally got there, but it took I don't know, darn near 16 years. So I think thinking about these things and talking about these things and actually discussing how long it takes to do particular things is really important. I get the question a lot about how long it took me to do my TEDx talk. And I said, well, first of all, it was a talk that was crafted over the course of some 40 odd years. And then also, because it's my personal story, and then also the amount of time I put into practicing it to remotely sound fluent was about 150 hours total of prep work, start to finish. And I still don't think I sound like I sound when I'm 100% comfortable in speaking. So that leads me to this piece, which is undivided attention and
Just a question back on that quickly.
yeah, go right
Yeah,
ahead.
Alex, on the stretch goal, I think part of, I use myself, my challenge would be since you used a marathon, someone may say, hey, that'd be great, but then I'm like, I got to freaking go do a marathon. And so trying to define that goal that it's so that and so for me, it's defining that goal that I want so bad that it becomes that stretch goal. So it's defining that's part of the challenge, right? Because many people say, I'd love to run a marathon. That's the extent of, oh, I'd love to write a book. But it's not like if I don't write a book, I'm on my deathbed. At least as I sit here today, I don't feel like on my deathbed, I'm like, oh, I didn't write a book. Oh. There's other things. So trying to identify that stretch goal is part of my challenge, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because lots of people in the world are handing you their thing. So go do a TED Talk. Go do a, go do a marathon. Go do, I mean, I've had thousands of people hand me ideas, some of which I've picked up and run with and then executed. And I'm like, why the hell did I do that? I didn't actually want to do that. Has anyone experienced that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be great at that. You'd be so good at that. Well, but that just because I might be good at it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something I want to do.
Yeah, I've done that my whole life. So I'm trying not to do that anymore.
Oh my gosh, David, come sit by me anytime.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
I was just gonna say, yeah, the like 150 hours that you mentioned. I mean, I think that really speaks to David's point about like, I mean, we should feel like passionate about the stretch goal, because if like the amount of time that we invest, it's not worth the other sacrifices in our lives for that time, unless it's something super meaningful.
Totally want to hug you, Melissa, right now, because that's key. The reason I picked up the TED Talk, the reason I did that was because I feel so strongly about helping people who struggle to talk. It's all I've ever done, right? So I have struggled myself to talk. I've always pictured myself up on that stage and then recognized how woefully inadequate I was to even get close to that. I want to get people who want to even just, I mean, gosh, I work with people who struggle to introduce themselves around the table, an executive leadership table. I'm not talking about people that you would even anticipate. I'm talking about people who look like they have it all together, but are on the inside shaking and quaking and going home exhausted because it takes so much effort for them to communicate. All of my introverted friends, raise your hands. It takes a lot of effort to do that. So yes, you must feel passionate about it. I'm so glad that you say that, because that's the last thing that you want to do. The last thing that you want to do is pick something that's somebody else's goal. So I have friends that have goals to get on a stage, and I have even said this, and now I revoke it. I'm putting that out in the universe now. I'm like, I want to be on a stage and talk in front of 10,000 people. That actually scares the hell out of me. I'm not sure I want to do that. Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't, but it scares me. And so what is it that you're willing to give your undivided attention to and your great effort to? Doug, will you share a little bit about what you're so passionate about? Because I think you have a grasp on what needs your undivided and great effort. And maybe I'm wrong, but tell me.
It's about making, so I work with IT organizations primarily in businesses and helping businesses get value out of their investments in technology. And so that's the passion. It's making these, helping these IT organizations, IT leaders move from good to great. And I have a real, I get on the soapbox. It just comes out of my mouth, right? I get on the soapbox and I get on a roll, and I feel like I almost become a bit preachy, but it's coming from it's coming from a good place. I want people to, I want them to be better. They can be better, and so that's it.
Mm-hmm.
How's that?
Really good. Thanks for sharing. Sharing stuff out loud is hard. So the piece around what I hear many people say is that they want to help other people. So many of the people that I talk to want to speak more clearly because they have something that they want to share and they want to help other people. So, and speaking is a great way to help more people all at once. Look, right now I have 4 people in this room. That's a lot more than, you know, a 1-hour individual session. The effect is exponential. You continue to grow this and you can help lots and lots and lots of people. That's the goal. So the question I would be asking myself is like, what's my goal? How do I want to help? Is a great way to think about what is actually worth my undivided attention and great effort. What's worth that? When the undivided attention is really important. I'm going to touch on this for just a moment because we spend our time in a very, very, very distracted world where we're checking Facebook and looking at our phones and doing all of that. So again, I'm going to reference athletes, musicians, all of that. When they practice, and it's devoted time. It's on the calendar. It is something that they do over and over again. Many times they do it alone. I don't have the research behind this, but I'm going to speculate why, and y'all can jump in. But I think it's because the world is very quick to hand you lots and lots of feedback. And when you are working on something that is solely the thing that you must be working on, the last thing you need is lots of other people speaking into it, handing you their ideas and their suggestions and their recommendations, because we are a feedback-driven society. Give me feedback. Let's go. Come on. Give me feedback. And then you're trying to incorporate a bunch of other people's opinions versus doing the work that you need to do focused on that very one particular thing that you want to get better at. Where's that sit with you guys? Does that sound familiar? The last piece I'll say with great effort is that many times I hear people say that they want to appear effortless, or I have actually been called effortless in my speech. Anytime you see something that looks effortless, remember that it only came because there was effort attached to it. Even if you have natural talent and ability, and that's what's so interesting about the book Grit, is they talk about that there are many people who have tremendous talent and ability that actually don't go as far as people who have grit and persistence and the willingness to do this, because they just simply aren't willing to do the work. So they could be talented. There's lots of technically talented musicians. They were born with a gift for it, but they don't put the practice in and they don't put the work in. And so they never get to that next level. The grit and persistence, the ability to do the hard work, is what separates like good and great. The last piece of deliberate practice is immediate feedback. And when I mean feedback, I mean the bad kind. Dang it. So again, it doesn't help them to know what they're doing right. It helps them if you're working on one particular stretch goal, one thing, you need critical feedback about what you're not getting right so you can alter and course correct immediately. So I'll go back to the TEDx talk to give you an example. When I was doing that, I practiced with lots of people. Now, no, I say I practiced. I did not do deliberate practice. Did not ask for feedback from everybody. I practiced with lots of people. I said it over and over and over again, but I didn't ask them for feedback because I didn't want it. I had one person, one coach, who I would record and send it to literally every day before, a week before the performance. I sent it to her every day. And she would respond back with a very critical piece of feedback. And I mean critical, like to the point where it feels nitpicky. And I wanted to whine and complain and be like, but that's not what I needed. I needed to course correct, and I needed to course correct as quickly as possible. So she would say things like, you sound unhinged, or at one point you're meandering, you're getting off topic. I needed to hear that, but I needed to hear that from someone that I had a very close coaching relationship with, because not everybody can hand you that feedback and you not take it weird or funky or awkward. Y'all, does this make sense?
Alex,
Yes.
is there, I know this is generalizing. I know people do, all different kinds of things. But, when you're listening to speakers, do you find certain feedback that can be applied to a lot of people? Like certain things that you see time and time and time again? Like if you had to say my top three feedback or criticisms would probably be, what would those be?
Lack of preparation, overperformance, and over reliance on external cues. But I say that with caution, because I admit this fully, David, you didn't see this. I use notes and I use a PowerPoint. So I have structural support, but those are the three things that I see. Lack of preparation being the biggest one. Whether you're a comfortable speaker or an insecure speaker. So insecure speakers, it just looks different. So an insecure speaker avoids the preparation because of the fear, right? So if I go down this path, it causes me anxiety. So it's easier to procrastinate because I'm so worried about it not being perfect. An overconfident speaker is like, I got this. Either way, the end result is the same, which is not clear and coherent presentation or storytelling or workshopping. Pick the thing. That's a really great question, Peggy. It's a really great question. So when you are doing this, I highly recommend that you pick a person, not your significant other, by the way. No. Separate church and state. I don't know, that's maybe the wrong analogy, but you know what I'm saying. Like you got to snuggle up with that person. And if they tell you that you're meandering or that you sound unhinged, you would have to be a much stronger person than I am to be able to take that feedback from somebody you love and you got to snuggle up with at the end of the night. You want somebody that you know and trust, and that somebody who understands who you are and how you operate. That is mission critical, because if you don't have that, then what you might end up with is someone who is coaching you around what they want you to do and not what you want to do. Does that make sense? Melissa, smile more. Oh, for the love. David, stop fidgeting with your hands. Stop it. Doug Tedder, coach me back for a moment if I've told you any really crappy public speaking advice, because I'm still on the spectrum of learning all of this stuff. So I admit fully mistakes. Y'all, I taught really bad public speaking advice for a while. And the thing that killed me was I was watching these wonderful people take that advice, just like I tried to take that advice, apply it, and then fail. And then watching them beat themselves over the head over and over and over again, going, why doesn't this work for me? Well, turns out you're not Tony Robbins, me either. I don't know that I want to be Tony Robbins. Or pick your person, Mel Robbins. I don't know. There's probably a person you've got in your mind and you're like, I want to be that person. No, you don't. You want to be David. You want to be Doug. You want to be Melissa. You want to be Peggy. For real, legitimately. So find the person who can help you do that. It's 3:46. How am I doing, guys? All right. So once you have picked that narrow goal, and once you have started the undivided and effortful practice, again, y'all, you are like, this should feel hard and your tolerance for it should be low. in the gym, so I'm a CrossFitter. In the gym, we call it 1 rep max, where you just like, you go and you're like, I'm gonna die. Like, this is so heavy and you look awkward and it's ridiculous. You don't do it a ton, because if you did it, especially on one particular move, but like I work on that one particular move, it should be ugly. It should not be pretty. So that's the other thing I find people struggle with this idea that the first time that they come out with something, that it should be the most beautiful thing ever. So you create a presentation once and you're like, this is it. This is the presentation I'm going to use forever, because that took so much work and now I'm exhausted. Please just let me use it forever. But then you get into it and you realize, no, it's not working, and you've got to change it. I had a woman, I adore her, and I'm trying to get her in one of these courses because I just want to hug her and love on her and tell her that it's going to be okay and that she should show up as herself. But she emailed me once and she said, she's like, why is it that at the end, I just want a standing ovation? I just want people to cheer for what I said. And I was like, man, that is the wrong expectation, because very few people get a standing ovation. And so I wrote this piece for her all around Martin Luther King. And we talked about this last time, Peggy, because I can remember you and I talking about this, or maybe we talked about it during office hours. But Martin Luther King, the I Have a Dream speech. Have I given you this speech already? You can shut me up now if I've already given it. So Martin Luther King, everybody points to that and talks about how, what a wonderful speaker he was. And he was a wonderful speaker. But what people don't know is that if you go research the I Have a Dream speech, what people don't recognize is that he had been talking about dreams for at least 2-3 years prior to the event of the day of the I Have a Dream speech. He had been talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. So when he got up there to talk, he was actually talking about something else. And there was a woman, I still need to find out who that woman was. Details are still hard. I'm working on it, Peggy. That's a stretch goal. Get better with details. Not good, like numbers are hard. But there was a woman and she said to him, tell them about the dream. Martin, tell him about the dream. And so that's when he launched into the I Have a Dream speech. But it wasn't like he just came up with that off the cuff. Many times what we see that we think is off the cuff is actually not off the cuff. These are things that people have said over and over again in different ways. They have practiced it. They may not recognize that they have, but they have. And my bet is, and I've challenged Doug on this before he came to office hours, which is, what are the things that you're saying over and over and over again? Because the things that you're saying over and over and over again are the things that you're really good at saying. So how do I incorporate those into what I'm already talking about and make them applicable and relevant to my audience? Questions on that or thoughts? Oh, there's my question slide. This is the prompt that I used to remind me to ask you questions.
I think there is a part of it that's like the content, it's like the content and then the presentation. And they both require crafting, but and I think that, I don't know if this goes to your point, Melissa, but sometimes, like, I know I wonder, I do a lot of career coaching and recruiting and HR consulting. And so I read this stuff, live and breathe it. Doug, you're probably the same way with IT. So to me, I feel like everybody knows this stuff. And, sometimes it's sort of deciding like what goes in the presentation because I want to bring value. So I have to be kind of reminded, that other people don't live and breathe, and that some people are going to know some of the stuff that you're talking about, but hopefully they come away with a nugget or two. But there is that sort of equal part of crafting the talk, what's interesting, what's valuable content, and then delivering it.
Yes. So the general statistic around what we know versus what our audience knows is that your audience doesn't know more than 20% of whatever it is that you are an expert in talking about. So that leaves you a very, very large swath that you can talk about. I will also tell you, because we rebuke this too. We're like, people don't want the basics. Oh, it's so basic. It's so basic. Well, it's basic to you because you are actually at marathon level and they're at couch to 5K. It only feels basic to you because you've done it longer than they've done it. So, and it's a process of unthinking because we're actually trained that you need to be the smartest person in the room, that you have to sound like the expert, which I'm like, expert, that means like, let's be honest. Sometimes expert means know-it-all. And I don't want to be a know-it-all. I want to be a guide. I've done a lot of work on this, but I also love input from other people and questions from other people and the active participation that says I don't have all the answers. So when you're thinking about crafting a talk, the first place I go is back to the basics. What is it that they need? Because the world is busy and stressful and overwhelming. So how can I make this as easy as possible? And then remind them, Jody says this, I know that Jody from Purple Ink, Peggy works with Jody. She says, I'm a professional reminderer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not here to teach you something you didn't know. There's not a thing I said today that y'all didn't know on some level, is there? Maybe. But I bet for most of it, you knew this. And that's okay. I've put it in a different context. Marketers call it the rule of 7, that you have to present information 7 different ways and 7 different channels. So think about it that way. This is simply a channel. I have lots of different channels I can use. I can speak, I can write, I can do workshops, I can do one-on-one coaching. I can stand in front of a crowd if I so choose to. Where's that sit or make you think? What does that make you think about, guys?
I think that gives you a little confidence when you're crafting your talk.
Yeah, it should. Like, David, I don't know what you talk about with people, but I bet that what you know about what you know is way more than what I know about it. I'm over here in my bubble of talking and running and CrossFit and dinner. That's basically what my life looks like most of the time. Like, what am I gonna make for dinner?
I can always talk about dinner, so I'm good there.
What's the thing you like to talk about, David, or you want to talk about? If you could talk about anything, what would it be?
Good question. I leadership, how to achieve things you never thought you could, sports. Yeah, those are 3.
Can't get enough of those things. I can't get enough of leadership, things I've how to accomplish stuff that I've never accomplished before. Sports, maybe, though. Depends on what I need some context around
Sports
that.
is probably the analogies within those other 2.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else, Doug? You got anything? Or Melissa, you have anything to add?
I guess I have a question about this, totally, this makes sense. And I'm one of those people, Alex, that procrastinates. I've been on both sides of that, insecure speaker and overconfident speaker spectrum in terms of the reasons why I don't practice. But what about more menial stuff? You know what I mean? So I'm creating maybe random presentations for my small team at work, or for a group of peers, or even a small group of what about the more routine things where I can't spend out, I don't have hours to spend honing in on a message and like practicing my delivery. And I would argue that it's like for a lot of this, it's not as, it's not warranted. It's not as necessary. So like, what about just like in day to day, or are you, I think you kind of said this, or at least I internalized it this way. Like, is it the more that we put our messages together properly and practice, like then when we do new presentations or whatever it is, like that's where the practice comes in. It's not always about that specific slide deck.
It's about the structure that best works to convey the information to people. So it's actually practicing the structure in those menial things. Because what I find is that because we haven't done that, so we go back to fundamentals. I can't think of the football coach. He's a real famous football coach that he started every practice with, "This is a football." So he literally didn't matter. And he like pro level would be, "This is a football." So you're not handing that to your audience. You're doing that to yourself. So can I show you something? Can I get real vulnerable here for a minute? So I follow exactly what I teach, which is a 3-part formula. So you can see it there, right? So I have my 3 parts. I've written it out no less than 3 times in each way. And then I went and I built the slide deck around beginning, middle, end. The beginning is you plus me plus we. The middle is the content, the piece that you need to know with plenty of space for conversation. And then the end will be, I'm going to tell you what to do next. I practice it over and over and over again because I've missed it so many times. So that is, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's that kind of minutia. So you've probably heard it. It's like what makes excellence. It's the tiny little habits. It's the repetitive things. Peggy and I were talking about it. She asked me if I move around the house. And I said, no, I actually don't move around my house. I sit right here and I do my job because I have to train myself that this is where I work and this is where I speak and this is what I do. Because if I get off track, then I get lost and distracted. So it's it's the nitty gritty work that people don't want to do that makes the difference between good and great. To Doug's thing, like so much of the people that he's trying to help are the people that are doing the nitty gritty work within the organization. And they really need the supportive leadership in order to be able to effectively do their nitty gritty work. Am I right, Doug?
That's true. Very true.
The
And-
people
Alex, would you say that formula is one? Because I'm just thinking, I just recently did a talk on recruiting, but throughout, I'm telling them what to do. Like, I didn't at the end say, so today, I'm just saying, I didn't say, so today we learned, or today I hope you can go out and because it was sort of a part of the whole thing. Like, here are some things out there. Here are some things to think about. Are you doing that? If not, try this.
Mm-hmm. So is it safe to give you feedback on that? Is it okay?
Yeah.
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 So absolutely. I would say that you missed something there. You missed an opportunity to remind them. So what we know is that people have a really hard time retaining a lot of information. We all want, another way to say it is, we all think we're really smart, but we are not. That's why we have calendars and reminders and notepads and all of the tools. And yet we walk out overconfidently into the world like, I don't need that. Heck yes, I do. It's like I need my glasses. It's like I need water. I can't function without those things. So the end piece is a reminder of here's what you got today, because you've probably forgotten, because I very likely gave you so much stuff because this is new to you. So remember, new learning, people only have so much capacity for it. So you need to go back and do that. Absolutely. Every single time. And people are worried that that's going to make other people dumb. I call it merciful. It's
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I think I'll retool the end of that if I do it again.
Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Put a slide in. Sometimes I have a slide that repeats to remind myself. I'm glad that you gave me the reminder as I wrap up so I can remind you guys of what you learned today. Right? We have to do these things and we have to also make it safe. So here's the other thing. I like to make it safe for people to say, it's really hard to present and we're going to mess up. So we have a mistake aversive culture, right? Don't make a mistake, heaven forbid. Yeah, I've yet to meet the perfect human. I don't know. So, any other thoughts or questions? Totally fine if you don't.
I have some additional clarifying questions, Alex. So when you said the thing about the immediate feedback and you would like record and then send to your coach, do you always recommend like recording yourself practicing?
Yes, only if you're going to listen to it though.
And then would you like, because you said when you would practice before in front of a lot of people and then, but you were maybe afraid to ask for feedback, like, do you, I mean, does it matter, or is there a preference like to practice for a group or to practice on your own and share the recording with just one person, or can it be multiple people, or does it just depend?
It can be, it depends on what you need and how do you prepare the other people to give you the feedback. So I like to prepare people for the type of feedback that I'm looking for. It generally sounds like this. What would make this better? What would make this more impactful for you? Oftentimes we go digging around for negative feedback that we don't want. Like, what was missing? And you're like, and then they'd be like, you didn't serve me coffee. And I'm like, well, shit, that's not what I asked. Right? I actually didn't need to know that. Thanks. Now I feel bad. Right? That might be sort of helpful, but that's not. Make sure you know what you're looking for. And again, if you don't know what your goal is, then it's really hard to guide other people toward what it is that you need. So it's not a very specific answer, because I don't know what you need in that scenario. I've done multiple versions of it, is another way for me to answer that question. So for example, when I wrote my book, I selected a group of women I didn't know to read it and give me unsolicited critical feedback, because I knew I needed it to flesh it out. Not a lot, very intentionally picked through other women. Like I was very intentional about this group, but I had never met them and they had never met me. So I needed to see if the book would land with other people who didn't know Alex. With the talks, I watch some. I don't watch a lot because I will easily overwhelm. So for example, I recorded an entire series on video on YouTube. I make fun of it now because it completely came out wrong. And I knew that within 20 minutes. And I could tell you within 20 minutes everything that I'd done wrong. I don't need to go back and watch the other 4 hours. That's masochism. Right? Is that the right word? Like, that's just painful. Like, you don't need to flog yourself. Again, small quantities, but make it impactful. Another thing you can do for immediate feedback is do your own self-assessment. So people call it reflection. I call it writing a SOAP note, because I used to write SOAP notes in the healthcare setting. So we had a very specific formula. It was subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. So how did I feel? What was actually observed in fact? What's my assessment of what needs to happen next? And what's my plan? I will do that after every talk. So I become my own source when I don't have someone to do it for me, because many of us work alone, or we're not in an environment where it's safe to solicit feedback, right? So Melissa, I would be very careful in your work environment, because it may not be the right people. So get really good at doing it for yourself and really honest with yourself about what your goal is and where you want to be.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I want to be mindful of time because we've gone a little bit over, but thank you guys. This hour always goes so fast. It's crazy fast. So today we talked about how to practice like the pros. And when I meant pros, I meant pros. I meant people who really know what they're doing when they are making things look effortless. So we talked about deliberate practice. Get Angela Duckworth's book, Grit. Check out Anders Ericsson as well. You know that deliberate practice takes a stretch goal, that it takes undivided attention and great effort and immediate feedback. That's what we covered today. Here's what's coming up next. So I've got my live Q&A. Come in. Peggy used it last week. Last time. It was great. So it's Thursday, April 15th from 5 to 6 via Zoom. It's this link. So save this link. It's always this room. Our next session is how to master virtual speaking. It's from April 28th, 3 to 4. And there's the Zoom link in case you don't have it. But thank you so much for spending time with me
Thank
this
you.
afternoon.
I appreciate your time. Have a good day.
You too. Bye, David.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex. Got to
Bye,
drop.
everybody. Nice
Thanks,
to meet
Alex.
you.
Bye, guys. See ya.
Take care.